from his organization. The organization doesn't have a building like this, I think.
No,
they just organize lectures, venues where they invite a few people, and then there are discussions around the theme. I've left it to Jasper to say what is the theme you want to talk about. The main theme is individual sovereignty, so I hope that he will say something about sovereignty. But basically he's going to share with you his drive, what is inspiring him. He is very much inspired by French philosophers. It's a cultural circle which is not so very well known in our Germanophone world, the Anglo-Saxon world. And I think a lot of insights are developed in the, let's say, the Roman language world, which should be more communicated also in the Germanistic world, so that we benefit from each other. Now, Jasper, please go ahead.
Merci beaucoup.
Start.
Je vais recommencer en français, parce que juste un instant, n'inquiétez-vous pas. N'inquiétez-vous pas. Mais j'ai réfléchi un peu de ça, parce que je crois que c'est une langue importante, mais actuellement c'est une cultuur très important. Maar laat ik beginnen in het Nederlands, want die cultuur is ook heel belangrijk. Ik denk dat die op nummer 1 moet staan. En dan wil ik even beginnen met te bedanken de kasteelvrouw. Erika, dankjewel voor de uitnodiging. Paul uiteraard bedankt voor de uitnodiging en Edwin. And I'll continue in English, don't worry. Maybe during the pause we can talk some French. I just returned from my vacation on Sardinia, so I had to prepare something on paper because I was almost forgotten that this wonderful event would take place.
Vacation,
it was a really good vacation. So it could happen that I look on my paper some now and then. I would like to start with a French writer, Victor Segalen, and it's all about culture and developing yourself, the main theme here, I think, to get sovereign. Victor Segalen once wrote a book, and it's called Les Mémoriaux. In that book, he told a lot of things, but one thing he also told there is that he thought that when a culture is dying, there's also a reason to why a culture is dying. Small parenthesis, cultures, there are people like Samuel Huntington that think that cultures, just like humans, tend to get born, prosper, I think it's verwelken in Dutch, and then eventually die just like all life. But he said, well, the reason why the Maoris in Polynesia lost their battle against the colonizers was the fact that they forgot their culture and their traditions. And what was one example of the tradition the Maoris had, and Victor Segalen wrote through his main character that tried to desperately contain this Maori culture. One of the reasons was that they stopped telling stories about their ancestors and the ideas of their ancestors and the things the ancestors did. So how do you say, the heroes of their culture, they stopped telling it, and by that they were much more vulnerable for an imperialistic ideology or a new culture. And I think that is a really nice parallel with our own culture, because I see that in the dying European culture, or the Judeo-Christian culture, which I learned to cherish very much, because everything we have is because of this culture, although I am an atheist. In this dying European culture, a process that I think another speaker, Bob de Wit, told also, it's a process that's taking place now. It can take centuries, but it's a process that starts with a bit of the same thing. That's the reason why I should have started in Dutch and after that in French. Because now I'm talking the language of the colonizer after World War II, let's say. But you see that we tend to forget who we are, especially in Holland, because the moment we see a German, we talk German. The moment we see an English person, we talk English, because we are, I think it's also something Bob explained, we are a real trade country. But when you forget the terrific people, I'll come to that later, that we have in Holland, you're very vulnerable for ideologies like liberalism or neoliberalism, or maybe the nihilism Bob talked about, that sometimes goes ahead with other cultures. The thing is, because of these cultures, they have the tendency to not only get born but also die. It was not only for the main character in Victor Galen's book sort of a struggle lost in advance, but it might be some sort of struggle, same sort of struggle for us. And that sounds a bit tragic, but I'm very much influenced by French philosophers, so maybe I and they are wrong, but it's the question if you can save a culture. I think Bob also told that it's actually dying. So it's a struggle lost in advance, and but you can. It's not really. Sounds a bit strange, but it's not really a problem that our culture is dying. It would be a problem if, let's say, there didn't get birth to something new, or it was a real problem if we forgot the worth that went along with this culture. So with the Judean Christian culture, and there are a lot of things we could talk about this culture, because when you think about it, you might not like the church or the way, like every people, the church made some faults, but if you are here and you can talk openly and you can discuss your ideas, it's actually not because of the church. I won't go that far, but it's because of our culture that developed, and the church gave us some real big, how do you say, tegenstand. The church gave us big resistance, but eventually in this culture, that is a Judean Christian culture, we were able to, and there have been some deaths and other horrible things, but we have been able to develop ourselves in that we can say what we want, we can discuss ideas. There are some people who try to go back to the old days and try to prevent it. But the fact that this happens is a good example. Another reason I started in French is because the theme of this Salon and the time it refers to, the 17th and 18th century, is a very interesting century. I'm not really sure if we are heading to a new, actually not a violent revolution. So like maybe some people think, although war is never to erase from humankind, it's something I think is in humankind, how terrible it is. But I think there's also some, let's say, positive things happening in this period because we can do this. The positive thing is actually that we can shape our culture, so we can sit and be tragic about it's going away and it's all gone, and let's see if the Islam is the possible successor. Never, I think only Bob knows what the successor will be, but it's always a bit of a difficult thing to understand what will come after us. There are philosophers like Michel Onfray, a French philosopher that's very popular and left libertarian, that says, well, I'm not really anxious about the Muslims. This is a culture that will evolve like it's a common story, like the Catholic religion has evolved. If I look at the facts, I am a bit anxious, but let's say we shouldn't be. But the thing is, I refer a lot to Bob because his speech triggered me. The thing is, there is something else coming, and it's about humanoids, I think, and a lot of philosophers think that too. And I don't think we have no chance of a bit steering on that wheel to where it comes. But I do think that people like Elon Musk are really working on something, and people around him, that's called posthumanism, and it goes through transhumanism, and I will spare you the details of which where Elon Musk is busy with. But let me summarize it that he's not only trying to get to Mars, but also trying to get to our brain. And I think that's an important part that divides us from the humanoid, because we have a brain. I'm not really sure if we have a soul, but élan vital, I would say yes. That's more the French version of soul or spark. But I think he's trying to get there. Actually, he's already, it's maybe a funny thing to mention. Actually, Elon Musk is busy with his company. I'm not sure if it's all part of Tesla, I think, but it's Neuralink. With Neuralink, he already is getting to brains from humans, but he's actually controlling right now brains of pigs. So pigs in his company do things they have never learned. So what does he do? And that's something might be coming at us, but we have to actually be resilient about it. He's just like he already does with humans. He bores a hole in the brain of a human, and then he attaches some knots and makes sure that something is ameliorated. So he's kind of a new Jesus that tries to make us walk and etc. And there's also something with Parkinson. But these pigs, they actually are in the front stadium of this posthumanism, maybe, because they do things that they didn't know. Actually, Elon Musk is uploading information on these pigs, and therefore they do what they do. So that's quite a scary scenario if this Neuralink transfers this knowledge into humans. So I told you a little bit about language. That's where I started with. Of course, it goes about culture. So the language is just a vehicle for good values, I think. But why we should think about the language and thus the culture we choose and develop is actually best explained by an example. I told you I arrived from Sardinia, then you go to France. I passed the beautiful city of Nice, but eventually I arrived in Bourgogne, Bourgondia. And there I got into, I discovered why I love the French culture. On a simple camping, actually quite dirty camping in a yurt, and I'll spare you these details also. And it goes about, this story is about the perfection of imperfection. That's the most interesting part of France, I think. So I went into this camping and I came in the reception, and as a Dutch guy does, he looks around and he sees, well, it's dirty. It's all dirty on the ground. How is this possible? You have a camping and you want to have customers. So I was a bit, I'm not used to that, so I was a bit for my apropos. And I had a beautiful conversation because I love French, so we talked a lot about actually about French philosophers and about some French magazines. I never imagined that. But then then I walked away to my wife and children, and I thought, well, what did I see, and what was my reaction to this? Was this normal? Because actually at that moment I understood why I loved France. Because not that it's all dirty and stuff, that's okay, but that's not French neither. But I think it's the imperfection of France. I thought to myself, how big is the chance that this camping owner had something more useful to do than to wipe his floor? And there is actually a small link to what I see, and that's why I forget Dutch media, except from new initiatives like the Andere Krant and maybe Gezond Verstand. And actually, now I'm rather into the Libertarian Party. Not that I'm political interested or interested, yes, active, but all these things, yes, but the rest is all French. I read French media. Why? Because I see something very strange in the two cultures. In the northern, let's call it the northern culture, because it's actually not only France. It's French, Italy, Spain, and maybe also Greece, and a little bit of Yugoslavia and Greece. So let's say the Mediterranean part of Europe, it's a total different way of living. Yeah, everybody knows that. I don't say new things, but I'm trying to get to the point that I explain why this perfection of the imperfection was for me some kind of insight into why I love French culture. So when we in Northern Europe tend to like to arrange everything and organize everything in the perfect way, even before we have thought about what we are doing and why we are doing it and how we are doing it. I think that's the main difference between the French culture and the Mediterranean culture and the Northern culture. And I think that's also a reason why they have a stronger culture than we in the North. Because they are not really fast in adapting to new hypes and trends. They just have this rather strong culture that focuses on the headlines. So this camping owner was, for me, someone who focused on the headlines and was busy with other things to make his life beautiful, because he had a nice swimming pool, and he had a nice camping, and he had some other nice things. But we in the North tend to get distracted a lot, and I generalize, of course, because we have the tendency to want to arrange everything perfect, even before we talk. In France, they're always talking. Of course, that's their valkuil in Dutch, because there's too much talking. And in Holland, we do an energy transition. Didn't really quite think very good about it, but yeah, we make good projects and good money. Let's say it's that way. This trader mentality. But in France, they are, and in other parts of the Mediterranean, they are just talking. These dinners, they last for hours. They sleep quite a long part of the day. It's too hot. So it's a total different mentality, but also a fastness, how fast they are, and it helps them to keep their culture, and not only their culture, so the French culture, but also the personal culture. They are more quiet. They listen, and then they think, and then they react. And that's not all French and not all Spain, but it's something it differs a little bit, I think, from Northern culture. And I think if we try to do more salons like this, and we talk more and we think more, it's very important. It's incredibly important. It's far more important than everything I can imagine we are doing in other parts, and that we say, yeah, well, this costs money and it brings money, and well, we are building highways. No. That's in French. The highways are buckly sometimes. So yeah, well, maybe a bit less wiping the floor and a bit more talking. So that about Northern European culture, and maybe it says also something about the reason why we tend to look a lot like the Anglo-Saxon culture, or maybe I should say the American culture. Though lately I heard someone say the Americans, they have no culture, and that's a rather harsh statement. But in a sense, I could understand it, because it's a lot about money. It's a lot about money. Maybe you could say it's more an ideology than a culture. I don't know how many of you have been to America. I will be very respectful to you. So it's not personally, but I have been to America, and I see why I'm happy with our European culture, because I think the reason why we tend to look at the Anglo-Saxon world or the American culture is that we recognize things, because we have taken over already a lot of things since World War II. The French haven't always. They have contained a lot of their essential values.
They're more sovereign?
I think they're very, very more sovereign, yeah. So I think that's the reason we tend to look a bit like it. But there is also a big risk of nihilism. And I think also Bob talked about it before. He called it the nihilistic period we're living in. Because in Holland, we run after, and I shall exaggerate, we run after every ideology that comes along from America. It's unbelievable. We have structuralism. It was 68. So it was through the French theory, they went to America, came back in actually even more unimaginable rubbish and ununderstandable thoughts of philosophers that all came back of these thoughts. But we have also neoliberalism, we have wokeism, we have Palestinism, and it's all ideology that we take for granted and we run after in Holland. But we don't stop and start thinking about what we're doing and what it says about our culture and about nihilism. It's very, very strong. I'll try to switch it to a little more positive note. Our Judeo-Christian culture, that's actually something that unites us with the Anglo-Saxons or the Northern culture and the Mediterranean culture. Another reason why it's a very important culture, I think, of a very important connotation of a culture, is the Judeo-Christian aspect. And I told already that we, thanks to this culture, we are able to discuss. For example, if you want to discuss in Saudi Arabia about Islam, well, it's very dangerous, and it goes for all the Islam countries. So there's quite a big difference in these cultures. So now I was talking a long time, so I have one problem and two questions for you. We'll answer these a bit later, but I'll post them already. The problem is the imperfection of our democracy. And I mean by this that we are now ruled since 1988, I think. Sadly, it's called the Verdrag van Maastricht. Very beautiful city in Holland, but since that treaty, we lost our sovereignty.
92.
Yeah, 92.
Ah, you're right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, very good. 92. I'm not very good in years. We lost our sovereignty in 92 to Europe. So what we see in this democracy that we have, actually, I say imperfect, but that's a rather understatement, because since 92, we don't actually have sovereignty, because we gave it away to Europe, to Brussels. It's ununderstandable. It's not matching our constitution, but there's no problem. If you have some minor majority, you can change without having your 2/3 majority. I learned recently, I think, from Edwin.
Yeah, it's the Constitution of Holland, which allows in each fundamental right that is written, except the cases which are described by law.
Ah, yeah.
Now, law you can change with 50% plus one vote.
That's it, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the Constitution you can only change with 2/3 of the vote, and you have to have two different you have to have that decision during two different periods of government. So it takes you a lot of years.
But it still can, yeah.
Yeah, so changing the constitution is a hell of a job, but these fundamental rights, where we thought 2/3 is kind of security that they won't be changed, it appears to be relatively easy to get over them, to put them aside.
Now
This was the
I
reason that we started to write an own constitution.
yeah, you did,
It
yeah.
didn't end up in a new constitution for Holland, but something else.
No, but that's the imperfection of our democracy. So that's an imperfection I don't like, because we don't have enough power as a country. Actually, our Tweede Kamer is called it. It has no power to make rules or laws from themselves. Because if in Brussels they say this law is the new law, it overrules. Well, you can have some time and you can have a derogation, but I think this is really disturbing, because we have chosen, because how do we choose them? Candidates that don't even have the right to make our laws. Yeah. So that's a rather strange thing. So that's a real problem with devastating effects also on our culture and our sovereignty and our freedom, our individual freedom, and our ability to develop ourselves with that culture. So the question is, what is our past and what will be our future? That's the first question. And when you have a quick look at the past, we saw it's been spoken about earlier. de Republiek van de Zeven Verenigde Nederlanden. So we once had a republic, and actually it was a rather libertarian republic because we had several provinces that were rather sovereign. So that's an interesting thing to look at. We talked a little bit also about the future, and maybe when we discuss long enough, we get another golden age, and we hop over this revolution thing that some people see coming. But the imperfection of our democracy might come from this North European quest for perfection. So then, and I will give another example. Actually, the problem would obviously be Kant in this case because of his law-abiding rule. What Kant says is that if you have a state and a government, you have always abide by these laws of this government. And there are more people, of course, that think that. We talked about it earlier. But the law is always man-made. Also that we talked about earlier. And we have the example of Nazi Deutschland before, for example, that even Nazis make laws. So you cannot, rely totally on the law. It's a very good Karen talked us a little bit through that too. This quest for perfection is very dangerous because now we have this imperfect democracy that actually rules us from Brussels. And this imperfect democracy that is trying to, let's say Ursula von der Leyen is trying to impose this perfectly, to make everything work perfectly like Brussels wants. But that's forgetting something, discussion and ideas about is this the good democracy for us? The second question is, where will the quest for perfection of Brussels lead us? And I talked a little bit about Nazi Deutschland, but I don't want to compare von der Leyen to a certain age. But there's of course a very big danger about someone who is not elected, just like Hitler was not elected. He was appointed by Hindenburg, as a lot of people forget. A lot of people say, well, democracy is a danger because Hitler came to power through democracy. It's a total nonsense. Just like von der Leyen, he was appointed by one person. Actually, von der Leyen was appointed by two persons, namely Hollande and Merkel. They considered that that would be a rather not so dangerous woman to lead Europe. Well, it's a real danger that it could lead to something like that because we have Europe actually has everything that has a state. It's a flag, it has a national song, it has what does it have? It has a capital in Brussels. It has the legislation. It has the tax. Yeah, it can tax us. It has actually one, maybe two things it doesn't have, and that's I think a people and a culture. So that's actually they started the other way around because of this thing I talked earlier about. It started the other way around. They said, well, we take the same money and then we get a culture and a people. But you don't build communities like that. Money is always a rather nihilistic aspect, something you need, and capitalism is not something dirty because everyone needs capital. Even the Indians changed some shelves because they needed to exchange something. But you have the danger of such, but they don't have people and a culture, and it's a rather danger that it goes on like a train, and it's thinking that it's helping us, and it's not actually. So ameliorating democracy is the solution, I think. But just as before the French Revolution, the Salon time actually, there are some people that are holding back this development. And just as in those times, I think we should call it the bourgeoisie, as they call it that, and now we call it maybe a liberal oligarchy or something. But that was the term they used, because they were afraid. So they hold it back because they were afraid that their power and their money would get in stake if they would ameliorate democracy. So it's a rather strange to hear about, but this French king that was beheaded was actually trying to ameliorate democracy, just like de Gaulle was before he was beheaded on a more human way. So this this French king, he tried to ameliorate democracy, but he took away by that some power from the lower nobility and the bourgeoisie. Maybe I should, you are laughing, maybe I should give a more normal example.
No, I thought that you were telling us that Charles de Gaulle was beheaded.
Yeah, more in, how do you say, I'll talk about Charles de Gaulle, yeah. Because he was, how do you say in English, niet letterlijk maar figuurlijk beheaded. So he was...
Not in a literary way.
Figuratively. Oh, figuratively, that's very easy. He was figuratively beheaded because when Charles de Gaulle decided to actually propose, I say, a libertarian democracy, because he said, well, I want participation. If the French people don't want it, I will go. So there were some snakes in the government, like Mitterrand and the other, what's his name?
Oh yeah, Chirac.
No, Giscard d'Estaing. These two, they managed to make sure that his plan was ridiculized and thrown away. But actually, this Charles de Gaulle, what was from '68, was set away because he was paternalistic and conservative. He actually not only said, well, your provinces should get more power and your people should get more power in the politics, but he also included the companies. So he actually also said, your companies should get democratic power, and this larger companies should be able to choose their own leaders. So that's left libertarian. You said, Edwin, what is left?
Explain what left
what
libertarianism is.
Yeah, that is.
Who knows what left libertarianism is? Please raise your hand. See? Hey.
Yeah. I'll explain a little. Yeah.
You can
actually,
start explaining that.
Charles de Gaulle was actually a conservative. But he was someone who, his grandmother, I think, wrote to Proudhon. Proudhon is a nice example of a left libertarianist. Actually, I think he's the first that used the word libertarian. And you have a lot, in France, you have a lot of left libertarians. Left libertarianism, let's say, are people that want to create things that Charles de Gaulle proposed. So they want not only a political change, but also change in the society as well. So you start your own community, your own corporation, and there is also a bit of a strange scheidslijn. It's not so that, it's a bit fluid. Yeah, it's a bit fluid because, but some people that call themselves left libertarian, they don't want. Actually, Proudhon did want a state. When you talk to right libertarians, a lot of them think that the state is the problem. But left libertarians not merely think that you can ameliorate the state, but you can change the state very, very thoroughly so that it would help to build a society from beneath.
But when you want to set up your own communities and your own systems, your own company, that is a cry for freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
of course.
So then you set up a state which allows that freedom, which supports the freedom, and not which is hindering this freedom.
True.
So let's say the correction of democracy. How do you want to do that?
The correction
what will be the correction of this?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because that's also some example for left libertarianism, or maybe for libertarianism. When you ask a good libertarian, how do we do that? He will say, I don't know. We're gonna discuss with each other. We're gonna talk to experts, and we're gonna discuss with each other what are the ways to change the state.
Don't you think that democracy is just the power of the majority? So it's the law of the jungle.
No,
where the
not
strongest
at all.
is.
And that's also a very nice example of the difference between right libertarianism, as I know them, and left libertarianism. The state as a problem, or the democracy as a problem, but left libertarians, I think, at least let's speak for myself, they tend to try to think different about a state. Because a state is, for example, take the example of Israel. If Israel doesn't have a state, it would be a rather big problem for about 10 million Jews and Arabs living in Israel. Because another state would invade you and wipe you out. So a state can protect people and defend you and develop people. But the thing is, in left libertarianism, as I conceive it, a state should help you to get more free and get things done from beneath. So, yeah, you can have a good state and you can have a good democracy. Also, democracy, the democracy of the goal in these companies or in this society, in the political spectrum, it's a democracy that, of course, can acknowledge the minorities. You can. Well, if you ask the majority, would you rather always have right, or would you also protect the minority? I also think that they would want to protect the minority.
Would you call the Swiss state,
a good example,
Swiss nation, as a left libertarian example of a society?
I think it's a very good example for. I'm not saying that's a mall or something would copy exactly, but it's a very interesting. It's a successful state that has totally sovereign cantons. As I learned from you, because you live in Switzerland, that when one Swiss canton decides it wants to adhere to Germany, and it has a majority, it can go. So that's something rather interesting, although I adhere to the state concept. But there are more aspects of Swiss society that's very interesting, because all people, I think they even have the imperative mandate. So if you elect someone, you can also make sure that not after 4 years, but when he doesn't, this person doesn't abide on his own rules he set before he was elected, he can get elected away, kicked out again. So that's also a very interesting part of this. But maybe to conclude I'm not sure. I will conclude with some because I made a lot of how do you say, negative approach from this is not good and this can better, of course. But it's also nice to just name some things we can discuss later that I think would help our democracy a lot. I think an exit is very important, and I'm rather a bit dogmatic about it, because people say, well, you can change it from within. I don't believe it. I think an exit is very important to get started with your real libertarian approach. And then you have, of course, to make a plan for your relations with other countries. So you be a little Trump and negotiate some trade deals. But you have also to make, and that's an answer to your question again, a plan for your democracy. And I would have said Switzerland can be a very good example, but you should work it out in every region, I think, and just make some salons there to talk about what it's going to look like. But it's also very important, and I talked a lot about it, although I deferred a bit to France. Discover your own Dutch culture and your own heroes in politics and talk about them. Because I never maybe when I go to Rotterdam, I see Erasmus with a line on the station, central station there. But Erasmus, Spinoza, and I name only a few, Domela Nieuwhuis, maybe also a very unknown person like Jan Fortuyn. If you learn about what they did, what they wanted, what they thought about would be a solution in their times, you can pick these solutions to this time and think about it and talk with each other and write about it and discuss their ideas. I think also that direct democracy with a communal libertarian organization of your country is very important. So not only direct democracy, so choosing your leaders by majority, yeah, I believe in the majority, but also arranging little things, salons, maybe a corporation of someone who produces food and sells it, a new school. My friend Barend Gene always talks about your own hospital. I'm always a bit anxious about that when people think they can be a doctor all of a sudden. I'm almost fed the last things. I think we all definitely should delete political parties. I think that's very important because they uphold a lot of improvements. Choosing your representatives direct with an imperative mandate, I also said that. We could have a precedent in Holland, this Republiek soevereine, door des Pays-Bas maybe. And our crown prince can, of course, how did I say this in English, nominate himself as a candidate for president. That would be a lot better, I think. And then you have, we can still keep the monarchy, by the way, as long as you choose him. So my proposal for the culture of the future, more specifically the democratic culture, is to discuss these ideas and work them out. And I hope this short lecture will inspire this rather urgent development of une culture en décadence.
Décadence. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Je vous en prie.
We now proceed with